Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zeng here, and today we're back with Game 2 of the Brooklyn PC Finals last weekend. Of course, I am joined by guest Jon Hu.
Yo.
If you have not seen Game 1 of this best of 3, check it out, it's in the description below. So, unfortunately on stream, Game 2 was actually cut off halfway, but we did have the battle video saved, so we're just going to commentate over the battle video. It's a little bit hard to do very in-depth analysis while doing it, so we're just going to talk about the most important points and go over the moves, and afterwards we can talk a little bit about what we thought went right and what we could have done better. But for those that don't remember Jon's team in the first game, it was Ho, Lapras, Togekiss, and Rayquaza, and Mienshao and Klefki. Mine, of course, you see the 4 I brought: Cresselia, Kangaskhan, Groudon, Palkia. The 2 I didn't bring were Landorus and Amoonguss. So, why don't we talk about adjustments a little bit coming from Game 1?
So from Game 1, I'm actually okay with the lead. I know that the lead was putting a lot of pressure on Aaron, so I decided to lead the same thing. And I actually keep the last 2 in the back too, because I think in the first game, I wasn't expecting Double Edge to knock out. So I think this time I justified myself that if I managed it better, like with Togekiss and redirecting it, I can keep my Ho and Lapras around longer.
Right.
So I'm just going to go with the same game plan. Not much else is changing. I'm hoping he doesn't leave Landorus again, but that's kind of, I'm expecting him to bring it again, because that's just so good against my team.
Yeah, so I actually opted not to bring Landorus, as you'll see. Main reason is because I thought the lead matchup last time only worked out in my favor because I got a flinch onto Togekiss, but I was like, okay, Landorus' Intimidate doesn't do anything against Togekiss, and Rayquaza, I can go for the explosion play still, but now I have explosion, so he can, stop that by just protecting, which is definitely scary. And I thought Cresselia at least handled Rayquaza and Togekiss a little bit better, especially if I could get rid of the Delta Stream from Rayquaza's end by switching into my Groudon. So strategy this time actually was a little bit different. It was mainly to set up Trick Room and sweep with Groudon, and I kind of wanted to go from there, but I knew I still had to be careful of the Lapras and the Ho-Oh. So yeah, ultimately Jon opted for the same 4 Pokemon, which I think was a very good decision. After the first game I realized Togekiss Rayquaza is a huge issue in terms of lead matchups, and yeah, we'll just get started with the video. And as always, if you've enjoyed these videos, please show your support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. So I decided to lead with Kangaskhan and Cresselia, especially just for the reason that I figured he'd lead with Rayquaza and Togekiss again. And this first time I'm already kind of stuck in a tricky position. I figure I can fake out one of the 2. The question is, do I want to fake out Togekiss and give up my, Kangaskhan, or do I want to fake out Rayquaza and go for the flinch chances since I assume you're air slashing me?
Likewise, I had the same thought process, so I was like, okay, I'm going to Draco the Kangaskhan. He fakes me out, that's fine. I'll air slash Cresselia, hopefully get a flinch, prevent Trick Room from going up. And so that's pretty much how we went about it. Both Mega are Pokemon.
And I opted to actually fake out the Rayquaza here because I figured it'd be better to have Kangaskhan around. But of course, then I'm dealing with the flinch chances from Togekiss, and that is a 60% chance. So I actually do get a crit here, which is pretty fortunate because it does mean damage output later on is pretty nice.
Alright, so I go for the Air Slash, and lo and behold, I don't flinch him. So he gets the Trick Room up. And here I'm thinking, this is okay, because he still has his Kangaskhan, but I can redirect that. So I can just drop a Draco right there. If he wants to switch, he can take the Draco with something else, which he decides to do. And Aaron, I think you decided that wasn't really a good move on your end.
Yeah, so I ended up switching out into Groudon because at this point my fear was that he was going to go for an Air Slash onto Kangaskhan, though in retrospect this play just wasn't a very good play. Neither might be the first turn. I think faking out the Togekiss might have been better. Even if I sacrificed the Kangaskhan, that was something I've been doing in the tournament to get the free switch into Groudon. And the issue here is by switching to Groudon, I put myself at risk into taking a lot of damage. So for some reason, I really thought the Air Slash play was coming out. So the idea was by switching Groudon, I could pick up the knockout into Rayquaza with Ice Beam. But unfortunately, you did just go for the follow me play.
Draco.
Yep.
And the other logic here is that if I can get rid of his Kangaskhan, then Ho can come in and just kind of wall the rest of his team, no problem. If he wants to switch in something else, it's taking a lot of damage like the Groudon.
So yeah, that could have played out very differently for me had I just stayed in and gone for, say, a Helping Hand Double Edge to at least trade knockouts there, and then I get a free switch into Groudon. But instead, Jon ends up having a great position. I now realize that might have actually just lost me the game, if not put me at a huge disadvantage, because, Groudon was the main answer I had for Pokemon like Togekiss and Lapras.
And so here I switch out Rayquaza because I'm a -2, and I don't really want to take Flamethrower from the Groudon. It's still going to do a lot of damage. So I decided to switch into my Lapras, and under Trick Room I'm the slowest thing, so I can just pick up the KO onto Groudon, no problem. He's not doing much damage to me back with the Assault Vest bulk, and I can just knock it out.
Yeah, and so at this point I'm like, wow, I had a game plan and I just didn't execute it very well at all, which, Jon played it excellently, and here actually you'll notice I went for the Trick Room and he went for the Thunder Wave, so I couldn't even reverse my own Trick Room. So his Lapras now is going to be outspeeding my Kangaskhan and my Palkia already, and you know I don't have many great answers. He still has redirection support from Togekiss, so at this point I'm a little bit on tilt. I think I'm just frustrated because the Groudon turn, you know, I could have at least had a healthy Groudon put on a lot more offensive pressure, but instead Jon made an excellent play that turn, and I just didn't see into it.
Here I'm actually predicting not really much. I'm just doubling into the Kangaskhan, but he does fake me out, puts me outside of Citrus range, which is slightly unfortunate, and he stalls out Trick Room, his own Trick Room. So now I'm kind of in a worse position because now he can just double edge. Luckily, he double edges into my Togekiss instead of the Lapras, which I was kind of hoping he would do. Safe space running instead, but it still doesn't do much. And then this Freeze Dry is going to get off on the Palkia, 4x effective because Freeze Dry is actually super effective on water types. And so that's what happened that turn.
And that was pretty bad for me. I mean, first of all, just not doubling edge into Lapras, but I kind of wanted to eliminate Togekiss and the chance that you wouldn't have follow me support for Rayquaza in the late game. But I needed to make some big plays at the end of the game to try and come back, and unfortunately that, you know, wasn't a big play there. So also I totally forgot about how much Freeze Dry did to Palkia, and after seeing that damage output I was like, wow, like that turn played out as poorly for me as possible. So this next turn I do pick up the knockout onto Togekiss, but I basically realized the game is most likely over since you've still got Rayquaza and Ho-Oh in the back.
So here I bring in Ho-Oh because I'm thinking I'm going to give him a choice of whether to double edge knock out my Lapras or double edge knock out my Ho-Oh. He can't do both, and then the Palkia in the back will fall to either of those Pokemon. And so here I actually make a kind of risky switch. I switch out Lapras because I'm predicting him to attack Lapras, which is the main issue, I think, because I think with Cresselia he can at least do something. But Aaron makes kind of an iffy play with a low kick here.
This was just a bad play.
I was expecting double edge. I was
There's
totally
no reason
okay,
to low
totally
kick
okay
there.
with sacking Rayquaza. If you didn't sack it, I would outspeed you next turn.
Right.
So that's the main reason I switched into Rayquaza. And Rayquaza actually survived with just a little bit of HP, which will actually be important later. And then I pick up the KO with Brave Bird here.
Right, I think my mindset there was like, okay, even if he switches and I don't want to take the recoil, but because I didn't think Brave Bird would knock out since you seem to be a bulkier Ho-Oh, but that was not the case. And had I gone for the Helping Hand double edge play onto Ho-Oh, that might have just been able to bring me back into the game, but unfortunately not the case. So I think this game was really just poorly played right from the start, and Jon was making very good plays, and you know the mix of those, of course, like he's gonna end up having the advantage. So now with Palkia and Cresselia, I'm like, okay, if I can set up Trick Room, maybe, but Lapras at this point is gonna be enough for you, I think, to seal up the deal since you played it really well. And Jon's not gonna give it to me.
Here I Draco as Cress because I'm expecting it not to have Protect. I kind of want my Rayquaza to knock itself out with Life Orb recoil, and I know that Draco will still do a lot of damage, even though it's especially defensive Cresselia. And so I attack with Brave Bird because I'm expecting to be slower. He does set up the Trick Room, but now, as he said, the Lapras is going to come back out. It's slower than Palkia. Cresselia can't do much to it. So the Lapras kind of pins him in a position where he can't really get out of it.
Yeah, definitely. So at this point, I realized the game is over, but I knew that, you know, there were maybe 2 or 3 different points where I could have played the game 10 times better. Making that unnecessary switch into Groudon was definitely one of the main ones, and then later on when I just, you know, didn't go for the Helping Hand double edge, you know, in general that would have been a better play, though I really needed to target down Ho. I think you eliminating Kangaskhan sealed up the game there, which was a very good, you know, read on your point. So I should have identified the fact that it's, you know, he might try to just go offensive with Ho-Oh since Lapras doesn't do as much. You could go for the Scald Burn, but Ho-Oh, you know, is going to be able to knock me out in a hit. So that's kind of a, you know, prediction on my end. And the low kick play, really, like I said, I was just trying to avoid the recoil, though obviously you saw that Brave Bird was enough to take it, my Kangaskhan out. So I figured that, I mean, for me, it was just being unfamiliar with Ho-Oh, having no idea how much damage output it has. And I thought maybe low kick would be able to knock out the Rayquaza anyway, but, you know, you survived with the sliver.
Survived a little bit.
Exactly.
So it's actually an interesting point I'm going to talk about. So I'm running a naive Rayquaza, which is really iffy because you're not going to take special attacks like Kyogre's Ice Beam, which you could take if you weren't running naive, Jolly or Hasty. But the one I got was naive. I was saw for setting, and I got a naive one that was pretty good, and I was like, I'm just going to keep this. And it actually helped out here. But I would definitely recommend going Hasty instead of Naive, simply because you can mitigate the slightly lower defense by using Burns or Intimidate or any of those other things, while the special defense side is not very easy to help out there. But the one I got was Naive, so I stuck with it. Helped me out in this game. It didn't really matter in the other games,
I think
but
the main play was that
the main play was that I did not get knocked out. So.
And so yeah, in retrospect, so Jon ends up winning this game. So we are down to game 3 in the finals. Very intense set thus far. I think like both games, if either of us had made 1 or 2 different plays, it could have played out very differently. But you know, I was pretty pleased with how the set was going. I think it's just nice to have like refreshing close sets with top players. And so far, you know, this set was definitely that. So going into game 3, I was like, okay, I don't have many great answers to Rayquaza and Togekiss. And it's kind of funny looking back because I remember just getting like absolutely demolished in game 2, but at the same time, like now looking back, like those 2 turns where I could have actually completely turned the game back into my favor by knocking out Ho-Oh. Because at that point, then I know that your Rayquaza most likely doesn't have extreme speed, so I can help Ian Sucker Punch you, or you know, your Lapras can maybe go for a Scald or Freeze Dry, but it's not going to knock me out. So it comes down to kind of some more mind games of who's protecting or not. But, you know, at least that's a little bit better than losing Kangaskhan and outright losing the game.
Going into game 3, I'm thinking, I didn't feel that good about the Cresselia Kangaskhan lead this game, mostly because I didn't get the flinch. And I was like, well, this is a problem, because then if he leads something other than that, then I can start like sweeping. Or if the next game he decides to sack his Kangaskhan and then get in a full health Groudon against my Rayquaza Togekiss, it's going to be a bad time. So the next game I decided to switch leads, which we'll get into.
Yep, and so this is going to be it for game 2. The finals is now tied 1-1, so the winner of the next one will win the entire tournament. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Leave a like always if you did, and we'll see you in the next episode. Alright, peace.